I want to talk about denaturalization a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Since World War II, the only people that I'm aware of that have been literally denaturalized have been Nazis. Maybe there's been some other random cases that I'm not aware of.
Right.
But basically, the only time you ever see anybody being denaturalized is Nazis. I don't think there's any Nazis left anymore. I think they're all dead.
Yeah.
From World War II.
That hopefully.
Yeah. And the reason why they were being denaturalized is because they pretended to be somebody else when in fact they were like a Nazi death camp guard or something to that effect. So now, unfortunately, for many people who are naturalized U.S. citizens, Donald Trump has put together a team. He is spending $207.6 million. This is not a paltry chump of change.
Wait, say that number again?
$207.6 million to look at cases where people, the Joker from Batman 4.
Resting smirk face.
Resting smirk face.
Resting smirk face.
He will be spending $207.6 million to look for cases of fraud. Fraud in getting the green card, fraud in people who got green cards who ultimately became citizens.
Wow.
And he's hiring over 300 people to work at the Department of Homeland Security to look into possible cases.
Wow.
Now, they're going to look at all different types of fraud. One of the frauds they will be looking into are people who were previously ordered deported and then re-entered the United States under a fake name and then ultimately got a green card under that fake name and then ultimately got citizenship under that fake name. But they will also be looking at all sorts of fraud, people who may have committed marriage fraud. Any fraud is up for possible denaturalization.
Whoa.
Now, here's a statistic. I never, in my career, and I think I've handled every possible case.
Right.
I will say the only case that has never come across my desk, where I never met with somebody, was somebody who's being denaturalized.
It's that rare.
It's that rare. And I think I've handled everything.
Tens of thousands of cases have crossed your desk.
Correct.
Never.
So now here's a statistic that Jilly Bean is giving me.
Okay.
Okay, I believe Jilly Bean.
We believe Jilly Bean.
Right. She says from 1990 to 2017, so that's 37 years. In 37 years, there was a total of
1990 to 2017.
In 27 years, there was a total of 305 denaturalization cases that were pursued, an average of 11 per year. And that doesn't even mean just because they were pursued that the person actually got denaturalized.
Right.
It was just 3 that they looked into. Okay.
11 per year.
11 per year. Now they are going to look at 700,000 cases. That doesn't mean they're going to try to denaturalize 700,000 people, but what they're trying to do is to look into 700,000 cases to see if any of these cases should be. These are people who were previously in deportation or considered fraudulent cases.
Wow. Isn't there like an incredible administrative backlog of current visa applications?
Yes.
And instead we're going to have people review people who are already citizens?
Yes.
That's preposterous.
So last summer, just to put a little color into all of this.
Yeah.
Last summer, the Supreme Court heard a court case about whether or not the U.S. government can actually even revoke somebody's citizenship.
Can denaturalize, right?
The U.S. attorney argued that it could denaturalize anybody for any crime they wanted, even something as small as driving 5 miles over the speed limit. As an example provided by Justice Roberts, he said if somebody's driving 5 miles over the speed limit and they get convicted of that, you denaturalize them.
Right.
And Justice Stephen Breyer even went further, because that's what Roberts, who's the head of the court, asked the U.S. attorney. And Justice Breyer went one step further. He said, and I'm quoting Justice Breyer, he says, "It's rather surprising that the government of the United States thinks that the naturalization law should be interpreted in a way that would throw into doubt the citizenship of a vast percentage of naturalized citizens." Once you're a naturalized citizen, you should feel a sense of security that you are a citizen for life.
Right.
Because if not, Maybe somebody who's born in America could also
Be denaturalized.
be denaturalized at some point, or de-citizenshipped at some
Right.
point. So in a statement, Citizenship and Immigration Services, this is their position now.
Okay.
Okay. They say nobody who obtained U.S. citizenship by deliberately assuming a false identity will be surprised to learn that they're being referred to the Justice Department for denaturalization. USCIS screens for deliberate acts of fraud relating to forgery, the use of false identities, and we're going to go to great lengths to make sure that all these people are prosecuted.
Oh my God.
So, with that being said, why we're saying all of this. Now, none of this has happened yet. I don't want to scare anybody. Okay?
But even just
it's
the prospect
of all of this happening.
Very scary.
All right? Yesterday, Ivanka Trump,
Yeah.
the first daughter.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's, we got to put this all into perspective here.
Okay.
Okay. And it's going to come full circle in a second, Belgium Kim. You're going to understand why I'm talking about all of this.
Okay.
Ivanka Trump was interviewed. And she was being interviewed about the separation of children at the border.
Right.
And I'm going to quote Ivanka Trump. She says, "This was a low point for me," she says. "I feel very strongly about that. I am very vehemently
Oh my God, she's vehement.
against family separation and the separation of parents and children. The key point that she said is it was a low point for me." She talked about the daughter. She talked also about being the daughter of an immigrant. Ivana, her mother, Donald Trump's first wife,
Right.
was an immigrant to the United States of America. And she referred to her mother, Ivana Trump, who immigrated to the United States of America from Czechoslovakia. And then Ivanka said something very, 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 very contradictory to the Trump
Administration.
history.
So there's a contradiction happening inside the White House?
Yes.
No.
She made it very clear that even though it's a low point for me, the separation of these children,
Yeah.
we are still a country of laws, and that her mother entered the country legally.
She says her mother
Entered the country legally.
Okay.
Okay, we are a country of laws. My mother even entered the country legally.
Okay.
Okay. And that the family separations are a low point for her. So let's first get to the low points. Okay, Twitter had a couple of statements about Ivana having the low point for the administration. Okay, Shelby Jarima said she could have shown more empathy for the children, but no, it was a low point for me.
Right.
Like father, like daughter.
Right.
Amy Carhu said, "I'm sure the children living in cages feel very badly for her and her father. It must be so hard to deal with the lows while living the high life. I'll be sure to send thoughts and prayers to Ivanka Trump because it was such a low point
Exactly.
in her life."
I'm so sad that
Yes.
was tough for her.
It was very tough for her. And finally, Leanne Luman said, "If I wanted to create a robot that appeared to be human, I would use Ivanka Trump as a blueprint by which it should be built." So now let's get to Ivana.
Oh, there's something
yes.
with Ivana.
Let's get to Ivana. So, was Ivanka Trump's mother a legal immigrant? The answer is not really.
Not
really. She entered the United States legally in 1972 on a visitor's visa, like many people. Most people enter the United States legally. They don't want to cross the border.
Right.
Most people who are here out of status overstay their visas.
Right.
These are all people that Donald Trump wants to kick out,
Right.
including his first wife who overstayed her visitor's visa. She actually even admitted it in her autobiographical book.
No.
Yes, she did. But the story of Ivana, I'm reading it here, captures how permeable the legality line is.
Exactly.
She entered in 1976, and she made it from Czechoslovakia to Canada, then entered legally on a visitor's visa from Canada to the United States, or on a work visa to work as a promoter for the Montreal Olympics. In New York, she met Donald Trump and married him the following year. But it took a visa scam for her to leave her native Czechoslovakia. In 1972, Ivana was dating a guy by the name of George Sirovatka.
Okay.
She married an Austrian friend by the name of Alfred Winkelmeyer.
So not the guy she was dating.
No. In 1990, at a news conference during the divorce trial for Ivana and Donald Trump, Kennedy, who was her then boyfriend, said that Ivana and Winkelmeyer married for the sole purpose of her to get out of Czechoslovakia.
So it was a green card marriage.
It was a green card marriage, correct.
For a Canadian.
Right, correct, for Canadian visa.
Oh my God.
Right, other than that, she would never have gotten out of Czechoslovakia. She would never have gotten out.
So even Ivana Trump had to break immigration laws.
Correct. She broke the immigration laws to get into Canada.
Chasing a better life for herself.
Chasing a better life for herself.
Gee.
That is right. Gee, haven't we heard that one before?
Who would want such a thing?
Yes. As a matter of fact, in the book, it says that she never actually lived together with this man. They never had sex. But she did receive an Austrian passport as a result of her marrying this man, and she used the Austrian passport to make it to Canada, and then from Canada used it to enter the United States, and then made a legal entry, stayed in the United States for over a year, and God knows what status she was
while
here.
Happening,
she was certainly not a visitor for 1 year.
Right.
Eventually married Donald Trump, who then adjusted her status, and then became a citizen of the United States in 1988. Now, there was no marriage fraud in the United States, so she would not be denaturalized. The marriage fraud was to get the Austrian passport to get out of Czechoslovakia.
Okay.
But how hypocritical of the Trumps, of Ivanka, of Donald Trump to say we only want people who will follow the law. This is 1972.
Right.
Okay? When it was a lot easier and a lot more liberal laws than there are today.
Yeah.
And the mother of Ivanka Trump and the first wife of Donald Trump had to commit marriage fraud to be able to immigrate.
And yet she did it because she felt like that would make her life better.
That is correct.
And she turned out to be Ivana Trump, so it kind of worked in her favor.
Right. So in the United States, had this happened in the United States, marriage fraud carries a prison sentence of up to 5 years and a fine of $250,000. Convenience marriages contracted in order to obtain immigration status are also illegal in Austria and Canada. So she committed marriage fraud both for Austria and Canada, although she didn't use she used the Austrian passport to enter the United States and overstay her time here, and then ultimately marry Donald Trump and get her green card.
Well, given that she entered the United States on a passport that she obtained fraudulently, wouldn't there somehow then be recourse to denaturalize her?
No, because the fraud was on the Austrian government, not on the U.S.
government.
Maybe the Austrian government wants to take her passport away.
Right.
So in the book, in the autobiography for Ivana Trump.
Yeah.
I get them confused, Ivana and
Yeah,
Ivanka.
that's hard.
In the autobiography, basically it ends saying she wanted her freedom. Kennedy, who was her then boyfriend, she wanted her freedom. Her lawyer, I'm sorry, she wanted her freedom. Kennedy said of his client's sham marriage. And here we are in 2018, and her first husband is saying people need to follow the law, but there are no laws to follow.
Right.
Okay, people are desperate. People are desperate for better lives, just like Ivana was desperate for a better life.
Exactly. The hypocrisy, I feel like, never ends. Every day we discover something else where it's like, oh, by the way, he's saying one thing and living life completely differently.